Welcome back to the World Cup with two up front, and we have seen some upsets. Some of those upsets have led to some comments from some players who have been catching flack on social media and out here in the streets. One, Kevin De Bruyne, had some interesting things to say following their loss to Morocco. Chuck, we saw Belgium in their golden generation. They seem to be coming up short again, and a certain KDB has some thoughts around that. What did he have to say?
So to quote him word for word, he says, I think our chance was in 2018. We have a good team, but it's aging. We lost some key players, and we have some good players now coming, but they're not at the level of the players who were in 2018. I see us more as outsiders, he says. Man, that's I don't know. That's the easy way out in terms of explaining why you guys are not performing. Because I think Hazard's quality going down, I think, is a factor. Because we saw him single-handedly turn matches on his own at the previous World Cup. And the fact that Kevin De Bruyne has to do the heavy lifting by himself now, he's realizing, no, there's no one around me to help me. And I think that's why he said those words. But I mean, when you've had a golden generation and you've wasted the golden generation, even though Belgium don't really have a good track record of winning tournaments, what else would you say? Because it seems like it's hard. Each game as it comes, it's hard because they lost against Morocco and they looked worse than they did in the first match. You're looking for Kevin De Bruyne to do something. He's not doing something. They're playing Hazard even though Hazard's not even playing for Real Madrid. It's just the coach's trust in his quality. Well, at some point it will come good, and it hasn't happened so far. So for me, I wouldn't agree with those words because, I mean, when had Saudi ever had a golden generation? They just go there and they fight. When has Japan had a golden generation? Maybe they were and I was oblivious to it, but teams go into tournaments and they fight. We're having a chat with Liola about coaching, and I said to him, when you've got the talent, then you become a man manager. But if you don't, then your tactics must come to the fore. If they're aging, then Martinez must do more and find the tactic that will cause them to win. You can't say, we're old. What is Luka Modric doing at his age now? He's still turning it on. You know, you can't say, we're old. Ronaldo's struggling, but he's not going to tell you that he's old now. He's still going to push. Messi's 35, but Messi's still winning games for Argentina. And I know I'm talking about individuals, but from a group collective and a perspective of teams that are at the World Cup, you're there to win it. You can't then say, we're old, our time has come and gone. Kevin, you're only 30. The average age of Belgium is 30. Does he want them to be at their absolute peak? Does everything have to fall in line for them to win? I think it's more of a cop-out. And I mean, that's the only way for him to explain it, but I don't agree with those words. You can still win the World Cup right now.
They cannot win the World Cup right now.
Maybe based on facts, but I mean, you should have the mind. Do you agree with that mindset?
In terms of that they're old, they look old. He said it with his mouth, like I would have said the same thing. They look old, they look uninspired, they look like a collective of people who know that their best days and their best chances are behind them. First of all, a golden generation in my time has never won a World Cup, I would say.
Maybe you'd argue Brazil, but they have a lot of those.
Maybe you can. Yeah. I would, even with Brazil, 1982, that is thought to be one of the greatest international teams of all time, and they didn't win the World Cup. And then we know with Portugal, their golden generation. We know with England, their golden generation. And this is the most recent iteration of a golden generation with Belgium. And they've done as well as they could do based on the fact that they are not historically a great footballing nation. There were expectations on them, and I think because of where they tend to find themselves in the world rankings, which those rankings are what they are. They are not necessarily an indication of who is favorites to win the World Cup, because it is about who you beat in the interim, and they work the way that they do, you know. Yeah. And in terms of Kevin De Bruyne specifically, I don't think De Bruyne wants to be at this World Cup. I think mentally he's not there, partly because perhaps of when this World Cup is taking place, also because of him assessing their chances. He's been very honest after matches. He won man of the match after the first match. And he said very frankly that because of my name, that's perhaps why I got this award, but I don't feel like I played well. And okay, for a man who's that self-reflective, he comes into the next game, he has a similar performance. And I wondered to myself, could you not have done any better? And I think, on the one side, I do think like the weight of the world on his shoulders, where he's expected to produce like Zidane levels, like at the World Cup. I think that's a bit unfair because not many people have like reached that level at this stage. And in terms of then his thoughts on the entirety of the team, yeah, because you are starting with a Modric who is, sorry, not Modric, a Hazard, who's not the guy from 4 years ago. And their best chance was 4 years ago, because if they do get through that match against France, which was close and was won, I believe, off of a header, they go to the final and they face a Croatian team who struggled past England and who did have Modric and not much else. They could have won that. The winner of that France versus Belgium semi-final, I think, was favourites to win the World Cup. And so he's correct in that assessment. And what has happened in between the 4 years has not been kind to them. They have aged. And there is the fact that Hazard, Lukaku's he's not at his best. He's not really healthy as well. So, yeah, man, Kevin is right. Their time has come. Their time has gone.
He may be right, but as in my mind, I'm thinking that's what we say, the pundits, the analysts, or the fans. But as a team member, I wouldn't want to hear someone say, "Now this team is weak. Like we were good back then before Figabo," because you're basically counting the guys who just came up with, yeah, they're fine, But these are not the guys who are good enough to win the tournament. And as I said, from the outside looking in, I can say that because I'm weighing talent against talent. But every player against whichever opponent they're playing against will say, I've got a chance. I mean, Kuru says, I'm as good as Neymar. He's just more famous than me. That's what Kuru says in an African shirt. In an African team, they've never gone past the quarters.
The same thing about Salah. He can do everything that Salah can do.
You see what I mean? But Mozo is just so in the camp. I mean, you're definitely putting a stamp that regardless of whatever we thought coming into the World Cup, we're not, because you're always going to play and you're saying we're basically weak. I don't like those words.
He misses his family and wants to go home at this point.
I think those are accurate, because he's one guy who's also complaining about the number of fixtures, the timing of the World Cup, and here they are not performing well. So for so you might as well be somewhere else. So I think his head is not in the game, as you were saying.
All right, guys, tell us where you fall on those comments from Kevin De Bruyne. Is it just an honest assessment? Is he the person who's supposed to be saying this? Is he the person who just drove the death nail into the chances of Belgium, if they did have much chances to win this World Cup to begin with?